welcome to the Friday 5:30 All Levels Yoga class. I'm Chris, and I'm live here at the Hatha Yoga Center in Seattle, Washington. And it is the day after Thanksgiving, so today I took a long nap, and my day got started kind of late. So that felt kind of nice. I resisted the urge to beat myself up for resting, and instead I went with it. So I hope that if you're watching this, you had a wonderful day yesterday, no matter what you did. And I'm just thinking tonight a nice, well-rounded practice. Hi there. And that is Sasha Anshalanti. Nice to see you. If you have any requests, you know you can drop them in the comments. I just thought a nice, well-rounded class this evening. I was going to do a little bit of shoulder work. And so if you have a block, I don't know if you guys have a block at home, but if you could have a block handy, that could be good. You don't have to have it, but it could be useful. You could also use a ball in the way that I was thinking of using a block if you don't have one. And maybe a strap and a tennis ball if you have those things. So I'm just sitting in my usual position here up on my trusty bolster. And so finding your seat, and we'll just start in a seated position. Oh good, I'm glad you have blocks. So just letting yourself sit for a moment and find your spine and your breath. Let your seat be heavy. And kind of move around until you find sort of the optimal place for breathing. Noticing that if you're collapsing in the front, that affects your breathing. The carriage of your neck and head affects your breathing. And so some of it is about access to the movement of the diaphragm. So letting your seat be heavy and kind of feeling for some sense of balance in your seat. And then just tune into the breath, noticing it as it is without changing it if you can at first. Maybe noticing if you have any immediate judgment about yourself for not breathing right or for not being yogic enough or whatever, and instead just starting to bring yourself more fully into the experience of your breath in a curious way. And notice how you can kind of almost immediately shift the way you're feeling by not only bringing your awareness to your breath, but by taking a little bit more complete, comfortable, conscious breath. I don't like to use the word deeper necessarily because we're not trying to, take really deep breaths, but I think maybe it will be a little bit deeper just because, especially as we arrive in our seat for class, our breath can be shallow. And so taking a few nice, comfortable, balanced, conscious breaths to begin with. I also think it's valuable to just come into the awareness of your breath before you begin to move. And if it's good for you to close your eyes, you could do that. You could also just find a nice soft gaze in front of you, noticing how the gaze affects the position of your neck and head. And then beginning to feel the relationship between your breath and your heart beating, and also the movement of your body with the breath. So it might be very subtle, but of course there's movement in the rib cage and in the belly. And you might notice kind of a subtle, it's like a sheet of muscle tissue. And so I kind of think of the whole body as kind of in this rising and falling, but subtle with the breath. And there's something about that that's also kind of interesting from the perspective of meditation, just that one complete breath is like a full experience of taking it in and letting it go, and kind of the whole like enlivening and releasing. I mean, there's just so many words that you could put to that experience of one breath cycle. It's also sort of like the smallest unit of meditation could be one breath cycle. So just another couple of breaths. I'm going to look at the screen and see if you had any requests. Hi, Ira, if you're watching. You do blocks. Okay, I don't see anything specific. So let's take the block and come to stand. I'm just going to turn this up a little. And putting the block in between your thighs, I'm going to put mine this way and kind of holding it there just as a way to keep pretty neutral in your lower body and spine, because we're going to move our shoulders. I'm going to move that up a little higher. So finding your standing mountain pose, and then just let your arms hang for a moment, and then lift your shoulder blades, and then retract them, bring them together in the back, and move them down, and then forward, protract, lift, bring them back, together, down, so you're making circles. And you're noticing that the movement is happening in the shoulder blades, rather than you're not moving down here in any way. It's isolated pretty much to your shoulder blades. So you're making circles. And just feeling the movements of your shoulder blades, and then switch the direction of those circles. Feeling the movement of lift, elevation, protraction coming forward, depression, dropping down, retraction, drawing together. How all those movements work together. And then release that. And then you could bring your fingers, tips to your shoulders, and then make some circles like this. Bring your elbows together, lift them up and around. Notice that with the block there, you're less likely to lean back as you make these circles, so the movement is more isolated to the shoulders. Try to just keep your gaze steady ahead of you, circling around, the elbows around, and then switch the direction of those circles. You might be able to bring the elbows together, but you don't have to. And then release. And then reach your arms out to the sides. You could make a fist and have your thumbs pointing up, and then start to turn your thumbs forward and round your head forward, so you're just moving your neck and the shoulder joints. And then lift the head, turn your thumbs back, and go through like that. I'm going to turn to the side in case that's in any way not clear. So there's a little bit of, there's movement in the neck. You're extending and flexing the neck. You're moving through the shoulder joint. And a little bit of movement in your thoracic spine perhaps, but you're keeping that block pretty squeezed. And you could do that with your breath. Exhaling as you come forward, maybe inhaling as you open up, then release. I'm gonna take my shirt off, just one more. Let's take the block out and just sweep your arms up and switch the block from your one hand to the other, then bring the hands back behind you and hand off the block behind you. So a few times like that. Maybe you're handing it from the right hand to the left hand on top, and the left hand to the right hand behind you. And then maybe switch that. so that you're handing from the left to the right on top and the right to the left in the back. And one more time through. And then you can just set your block down. We might use it for something else. Just set it off to the side. And let your arms hang. Just kind of shake them out. Let go of those movements. And then let's do one more with the arms out to the sides. Like we did this, but now we're going to do like a corkscrew. So this is a little bit challenging to the brain. You're going to go opposite directions. So one shoulder's coming forward, the other's going back, and vice versa. And you're still breathing and keeping your gaze kind of steady ahead of you as you move through these kind of corkscrew motion of the shoulder joint. And then release the arms again, just let them hang. I'll take my glasses off and set them down. Oh, hi Janice. Some nice twists, you got it. So then let's just come up to the front of the mat if you're using one and find our standing mountain. Just notice your shoulders, mine feel warm, just a little bit like I worked them. So let them hang, let it go. You might even do a little bit of this twisting, gentle twisting, and letting the arms be completely relaxed. Maybe looking back behind one shoulder and the other, keeping your knees soft. And then just slowly coming back to center. And then let's sweep the arms out and up. Reaching up. Lengthening up, feeling the soles of your feet on the floor. Spread the toes. Lift the arches. Exhale, come forward into a forward bend. Just taking it easy, feeling your long spine. And finding your breath here. Again, feeling for the breath kind of all around your rib cage, feeling it in the back of your body, in the belly as the diaphragm moves, keeping the neck long and at ease, so no strain in the neck. You can use your block if you want to rest your hands, if that feels good. And then let's step the left knee back. Bring it back far enough that you can come into a low lunge with your abdomen up against the inner thigh, compressing a bit. And you can move a little bit. You don't need to be stuck, so maybe a little movement of the hips. Try to keep the head and shoulders lifted. And then coming up, you might reach your right hand back and just take a little twist like this. Maybe your arms are open. Maybe you can reach back for your heel. It's optional. And then sweep the left hand down and just come into an easy twist with the knee down. Opening the chest. Taking a breath here. Letting the head kind of come back so that the chest can open, maybe looking up. And then sweep your right arm back down and draw your hips back. Let your toes come up, drawing back towards the shin, stretching into the back of the calf and into the back of your thigh, the hamstrings. And again, staying lifted in your head and shoulders. Using blocks if you need to under your fingertips. And then coming forward, and then we'll step back up to downward dog, so do that consciously, making your way, and moving as you need to, so bending into one knee and the other, moving your hips, and making it kind of your own practice, so breathing, coming in maybe into your Ujjayi breathing, the subtle closure of the back of the throat. Feeling the movement of the shoulder blades here, so the shoulder blades have the ability to slide up and down, to kind of protract around a bit. And then we'll come forward into plank pose. And take a couple breaths here with a long neutral spine, lifting the belly, feeling your legs strong. So the pose is a whole body pose. And then bring your knees down and come down onto your belly. And let's come into Sphinx pose. Just bringing your elbows a little bit in front of the shoulders. Kind of like your belly's being pulled forward, so there's a little stretch in the belly. Open through the heart, breathing. And feeling your legs and how are they involved in the pose. They're probably not completely relaxed. There's probably some engagement around your glutes and around the pelvis to protect the low back. For me, if I just completely relax, it doesn't feel good on my low back, so my body knows how to kind of adjust for that and where I need to kick in some engagement. And then sweeping your arms back, clasping hands. You might keep your toes on the floor. Maybe the hands lifted off the back. You might roll over onto your left side, opening the chest and feeling the shoulder blades sliding. Just paying attention to the neck, and then rolling back onto your belly and over to the other side. Nice steady breath. And back onto the belly. And then relax for a moment, and hopefully your block is where you can reach it. So take the block and bring it into your hands and grip it behind your back and lift up. You can keep your toes on the floor, then reach forward with the block and pass it from one hand to the other, and then do it behind you, just like we did a couple times as you're lifting up in your chest. And then release. You can take the block in between your hands and kind of walk your elbows forward and kind of press the block together, like you're squishing it in between your hands as you draw the block kind of towards your forehead. And you'll feel some stretch in the backs of the arms. You can kind of wiggle your elbows forward as you do that. Find your breath. And then release the block and set it down. And bring your hands under your shoulders, tuck your elbows in, and come back up to your downward facing dog. Just taking your time, lifting the tail. And so there's lots of things in down dog that are happening, right? It's a pretty big symphony of stuff. So everybody's down dog is going to be a little bit different. And it's going to be a little bit more comfortable for some people than others, depending on your body proportions and your mobility and flexibility and strength and so on. Stepping your right foot up and over the left, if that feels good, lifting the right hip, bringing the sole of the right foot to the floor, and then back through center and step the left foot up and over the right, lifting the left hip and back to center. And then we'll step the left foot to the front of the mat and bring the back knee down. And again, just maybe fingertips on the floor or on blocks if you need them. Lifting the heart, feeling the compression between your abdomen and your thigh. Finding your breath here. Nice steady breath. Again, you can move a little bit. We're not trying to dump too much weight down into the front of the hip on the left side or into the hips. So there's a sense of engagement as well, maybe even a little lift of the pelvis, lift of the belly, just whatever it takes to find that supported feeling in your hips. And if you can't, you can always bring your hands onto blocks or up onto your knee. I'm going for a little abdominal compression because of the eating holiday, and then coming up, you could bring your left arm back and come into that twist if you want to bring yourself into this position where you bring your hand back to the calf or ankle. You can do that too. It's a pretty deep stretch, so take it easy. This is perfectly fine. And then the right hand comes down and we're coming into a twist, opening the heart, letting the head come back, feeling your shoulders stacked over your wrist. Noticing the position of your right hand. So if it's turned in at all, that's not going to feel super good on the shoulder. And then bringing that hand back down, the left hand down, and drawing the hips back, stretching into the back of your left leg as you draw the toes up and press through the heel, almost dragging your heel back towards you. And breathing. And then coming forward again. This time we're going to step forward into a forward bend. So just before you do that, kind of reflexively, think it through. Sometimes it helps to imagine the movement in your mind before you do it. If you ever played any kind of softball or baseball, that might be something that you learned about hitting, or even pitching, and then sweep the arms up. Again, an upward facing posture, just reaching. See if you can get a little stretch in your belly here. And then exhale, bring the hands back together at the heart. And let your arms hang for that little twist. You can move your upper body, keep your knees kind of soft, maybe even lift one foot. And back to center. Finding your standing mountain pose. And the arms come up again, reaching up, lengthening up, grounding down through your sacrum and lifting up through your heart and up through the fingertips. Feel your shoulder blades here. You can notice if they're lifting up or if they're jammed down, just kind of finding a comfortable place for the shoulder blades. Exhale, come forward. Finding your forward bend again. And let's step back to downward facing dog, one leg at a time. And let's take a little twist here by reaching the left hand back for the right lower leg or ankle, and feel a little twist in your thoracic spine, a little movement of this rotation of the thoracic spine. Breathing, really press strongly into the right hand and wrap the elbow in. And then switch, bringing the left hand down, right hand comes back. You might look underneath the arm. So the twist is happening in the thoracic spine, maybe in the neck. And then back to center. And then from here, let's step the right foot forward and come into the same lunge we did on the other side with your abdomen alongside your inner thigh, but this time with the knee lifted. Again, could have fingertips on blocks or on the knee if you need to. Keep your shoulders and your head lifted. Again, you could kind of feel your hips. It's tempting to sort of drop down into the hips, but maybe try to find kind of almost like a neutral position of your hips where they're supported and there's not any real strain like you're dropping into the hips. You're keeping them slightly lifted and strong. And then take a twist. Open up into a twist with your hand on the floor. feeling where the twist is happening in the middle of your spine. And feel like your left thigh, there's a little lift towards the ceiling in the back of the left thigh. Bringing the right hand down. And from here, see if you can step back to plank. And find your plank pose for a couple breaths. You can always lift a foot if you want a little more. And then the other. And then coming down through your push-up with your elbows by your sides, about halfway at most. And then maybe up into this higher version of Cobra, or you can stay down low on your forearms. And take a breath or two here. Maybe a little looking over one shoulder and the other. And then back up to downward dog. And taking a breath there. And then we'll step the left foot forward into the lunge with the fingertips on the floor, back knee lifted. Keeping head and shoulders lifting. And find a couple breaths here. Again, feeling the kind of balance required to not drop into the hips, but instead to stay lifted up. And then we'll take a twist, so the right hand is down, lifting the left arm, lifting a bit in the right thigh, opening the chest. Nice steady breath, Ujjayi breathing. And the left hand comes back down. Let's step back to downward dog. And then bring the knees down, coming to your hands and knees, and do a couple of cat-cows. So arching the back, inhale, exhale, rounding. Inhale, let the belly drop. Exhale, round, drawing your chin towards your chest. And one more time through. And then come into prayer for a moment, reaching forward. And take a breath here. Let's walk the hands over towards the right, drawing the left hip back, feeling the stretch up the left side of your waistline. Into the shoulder. And then over towards the left, drawing right hip back, reaching. And back to center. And then let's do a little bit of rotation here. So tuck your left arm under, so you're threading the needle, coming maybe onto the side of your head. So your neck is also rotating, some rotation in the middle of your spine. I like to keep my right arm reaching forward and kind of wrap that elbow in. But what would happen, as long as your neck's okay with it, if you also just lifted that hand up and brought it back to the sacrum with the palm facing down. If it's too much weight on the neck, please do what you need to do to support yourself. And then reach the arm back if you have it lifted, and come back up, and then we'll tuck the right arm underneath, coming onto the back of the right shoulder. And again, maybe reaching the left hand back up to the sacrum. Steady breath. Release the arm if you have it up. And then bring your left hand back and help press you back up. And come back to hands and knees. You can do just a little bit of rocking, so bringing your weight forward, and then I'm going to tuck my toes, bringing it back towards the heels, and then forward and back a couple times. Untuck your toes, bring your hips back, and come into this position where you're sitting back towards your heels, And do a little bit of rounding cat-cow kind of movement here. So round your spine and then arch. Rounding and arching. And then tuck your fingers back, or turn your fingers back and stretch your wrists. Maybe a little side to side with a little bit of weight into the hands and feeling it in your palms and your forearms. You can try turning your fingers in towards each other a little bit and see what that feels like. Just be gentle. We're using our hands a lot on our phones and on our keyboards right now while we're sort of more glued to the phone and keyboard than ever, perhaps. Release it and just shake your hands out. And maybe do a little wrist circling in one direction and the other. And then come back up to downward facing dog. Janice, I'm working on some different kinds of twisting. I hope you're noticing that. So that was, we just did some more kind of thoracic spine oriented stuff there, which is where a lot of the twist happens, obviously, but breathing here in your downward facing dog. And then let's come sideways on the mat. So I'm going to step my left foot forward to get into the standing in a wide-legged forward bend. And so you could be resting on your fingertips here and find your long spine. Maybe coming down further. You could turn your toes in and bend your knees a little bit to get into the outer edges of your lower legs, the outer parts of your lower legs, not really edges. So kind of feeling your way carefully through that stretch. And then straightening your legs again, bringing the left hand down in between the line of the toes and coming into a twist. Maybe the hand comes back to the sacrum, palm facing down. And just turning. I like to keep my left shoulder externally rotating by turning my fingers back. Breathing. You might pick your left hand up and bring it to your right inner thigh and kind of press in there and into the hips. You can feel your body weight coming back into the hips a bit, lengthening. Then release the hand and come out of the twist. Bring your right hand down in between the line of the toes, fingertips maybe turned back. Bring your left hand to your sacrum and just turn the spine. So watching the neck here. You can rotate the neck. You can look up, but keep your neck long. However much rotation feels good, we're not pushing into anything too challenging. Then maybe picking the right hand up and pressing into the top of the left thigh, using that for some leverage, lengthening the spine as you're turning and feeling the weight of your body coming back into the hips, and breathing and releasing it. And then just bend into one knee and the other. Letting the arms and the shoulders move a little as you do that. And then maybe coming deeper into the bend of your right knee. Toes turn out a bit, maybe the right elbow or upper arm underneath the shin. Maybe to the forearm. You can stay up on fingertips, but coming deeper. Feeling the stretch in the inner thigh. Both inner thighs really, groins. And then perhaps you come a little deeper, you could turn the toes up and come into this variation, which is called Skandasana, maybe with the hands down, or you could try lifting the arms. So just being thoughtful about your knees and hips here. Again, we're not trying to load the joints so much that it's causing harm or just total, we're kind of lifting up and engaging. And then bring yourself back to center and over to the other side. Toes turn out on the left foot a bit, knee tracks over the toes. And you might actually start in this first variation maybe with the forearm down or on your hands. Maybe the left elbow is pressing into the shin. Feeling the stretch, and then come into this other variation, toes turn up. You could be resting on the hands again, or let the arms lift. Kind of pressing into the foot, your left foot, and lifting up, using some strength. And then hands could come down to support you and coming back to center. And just kind of move it out a little. And coming back to center, reaching the arms back behind you if you can, clasp your hands. Stretching into the shoulders a bit. You do just a little twist to one side and then to the other. And back to center, release the arms. Walking hands over towards the left lower leg or ankle. Nice steady breath, Ujjayi breathing. And then hands over towards the right lower leg or foot. And then back to center. And walk your hands forward. So come into this kind of wide-legged downward dog position. And then maybe you could reach for your left ankle with your right hand. So you're doing that same kind of twist that we did in down dog, but now your feet are wide. Now we also did it on hands and knees, and we lifted our hand and brought it back. You can play with that. And then release. And reaching your right hand forward, bring your left hand to the lower right leg or ankle, looking underneath the right arm. So there's a little twist in the spine happening. Maybe bringing the hand back up to the sacrum. And release it. And then just heel toe your feet in towards each other and come into the low squat, letting the hips come down, toes slightly turned out, your knees are pressing out, maybe reaching forward with the arms, so your spine is kind of parallel to the floor. Try not to drop the head and shoulders. Keep reaching through the sit bones and forward through the fingertips. Knees kind of keep pressing out, and then come into a forward bend. And then back up. And let's take this block again. Let's do one more kind of twisty thing for the upper spine. We just bring that back in between your thighs. Finding your standing mountain pose. Reaching your arms out to the sides. Bring your right hand back behind the head. And then just try to turn your upper spine. So keeping pretty still and steady down here, feeling some rotation. Your neck's turning, but also in the thoracic spine. And then switch hands, feeling where you're twisting from. Notice how the head really wants to move independently of the rest of the spine. Well, mine does. Yours might. Like it wants to do more of the work, and then release. Come forward with a block in between your thighs into a forward bend. Might have to lower it a little bit. Maybe your legs are straight in your forward bend. And then take the block out, set it down, and just walk yourself back into downward facing dog. And take a couple breaths there. Maybe the knees are bent, maybe the heels are lifted, tail staying lifted. Feel where your shoulder blades are. And then bring the knees down. And let's lift. So come to your hands and knees, find neutral. Let's lift the left leg. So lift your heel up, lift your thigh up. And keep your sacrum pretty level. And see if you can reach back for the ankle with your left hand. So you're not actually opening the hip like this. Your sacrum is staying pretty level. Breathing. So there's a bit of stretch in the shoulder and probably in your quads. And then release and bring that knee down. And just circle it out a little. And come back to hands and knees, do your tabletop position, finding neutral. Then we'll lift the left knee, the left thigh, the left foot. Keeping sacrum level, reaching back for the ankle with the right hand. Keep your gaze kind of steady ahead of you so the neck stays comfortable. Breathing. And release it. And then bring the knee down. And circling it out. Coming back to hands and knees. This time, keeping your body in this neutral position, your torso. Lift your right knee and just open it out to the side. And hold it out like a fire hydrant kind of position. And then close. You could even bring your knees to touch and open. So you're basically doing clamshell here, but in this hands and knees position. So in a different relationship to gravity. A couple more times. Closing and opening the knee. And then release it. And just bring some weight out of your shoulders for a moment. And then we'll do the other side. So hands and knees, finding tabletop, and just slowly lifting your left knee out to the side without lifting the sacrum. Bring the knees together, open. You could flex your foot. Couple more times, just like about 5 times on each side. This kind of clamshell on hands and knees. And then release. Let your wrists shake out a bit. And then we'll do one more like that, but we'll do like we do when we do the clams and we extend the legs. So back to hands and knees and open your right knee up and then extend the leg. Try not to lift the hip and bring it back down. Do the other side. Lift the knee as high as you can without lifting the sacrum. Extend the leg. Bend the knee again and bring it back down. So side to side, open the right knee, extend the leg, bend the knee, bring it back down. Left side, lift the knee. Again, you're keeping sacrum level. Extend the leg, bend it, bring it back down. One more time on each side. Open the knee, straighten the leg, bend the knee, bring it back down. Other side, open the knee, straighten the leg, bend the knee, bring it back down. And then come into forward, like into a prayer pose, and take a couple breaths. And then let's come back up and extend the right leg out to the side. Toes could be pointing forward. Do a little cat-cow, just a little tuck and tip of your pelvis. And then maybe a little bit of this like forward and backward motion. Just bringing the hips back towards the heel with the leg extended out to the side. And then let's come up onto, let's lift the right arm and bring the body weight up onto the left hand, opening the chest. Stacking your shoulder over your wrist. And then bring your right hand back down, step your right knee in, and then we'll extend the left leg. Do a little tip and tuck of your pelvis. So a little cat-cow type action. And then maybe some of this where you draw your hips back towards your heel. Doesn't have to be all the way back, just whatever feels good for your body, for your knee and for your hips. And then coming up onto the right hand and opening the chest, lifting the left arm, stacking your right shoulder over your right wrist. Again, the fingertips could be slightly turned back so the shoulders open. And then bringing that hand back down and step the left leg in. And then let's come into frog pose. So knees out to the sides, coming to the forearms. And having a few breaths here. You can move the hips back and forth if it feels good. Or you can stay static, try to relax your hands. And then coming forward and bringing the knees together. You let your lower legs kind of go from side to side. Maybe make circles with the feet. And release. And here, let's do a little pancake pose here. So slipping your right arm underneath, so you're laying on your arm. Maybe the left arm comes back and your left shoulder's kind of dropping back towards the floor. Taking whatever position for your head. So that might be with your forehead down or maybe onto the side of the head or even onto a block. And feel your breath here. You can probably hear it as you're down towards the floor. So gentle Ujjayi breathing. And then I would bring your left hand up and kind of help support you as you untuck the right arm and then bring your left arm through. Maybe the right arm comes back and you're laying down on your left arm. As we call it, pancake pose. I know last time I saw you, Janice, on Wednesday, you were asking for, or maybe that was Tuesday morning. Yeah, Tuesday morning you were asking for deltoid stretches. So I'm thinking about that. And then bringing the right hand forward to help support you to come out of it. And just rock your hips a little. And let's press back up. And come into prayer for a moment. And then onto forearms. Forearms and knees to begin with. So we'll do some dolphin, but just do it on your knees first. And maybe a little sliding dolphin on the knees. So it's like a baby dolphin. And then tuck your toes and lift your hips. And come into dolphin pose, looking down at the floor. And maybe some sliding dolphin this way. You can also stay on your knees if it's too much for your shoulders. So just playing with your body weight, being careful as you go through these motions of the shoulder joint, strengthening without any harm. and then let the knees come down. And let your arms come back, coming into child's pose for a moment, resting the shoulders, resting your head. And then let's do an outer hip stretch. So let's do a pigeon, but with options for being on your back and doing a figure four, or standing and doing it like we do at the bar, but you could use like the back of a chair or the couch or something like that. Otherwise, just bringing your right knee forward for pigeon and being mindful of how much weight you're bringing forward into the knee and that it's comfortable. And if it's not, getting out of it and coming into one of the other variations where there's not so much body weight there. And then kind of feeling the hips, staying kind of centered as you come forward, maybe to your forearms, maybe all the way down. You could use a block under your head too if you want. So the head doesn't have to drop really far forward to hit the floor. And breathing. Sometimes I just see like people will be on their forearms and they'll let their head drop and it just looks like straining happening with the neck. So supporting yourself as you need to. For me, the block in this position of, there's 3 settings for the block in the middle position, is kind of just right to rest my head and keep my neck long if I stay on my forearms. And then lifting your head if you have that, setting your block in front of you, and let's lean towards the right. You could bring your leg forward so that you're more in a 90-degree angle with the front leg and also with the back leg. And just feel that. You could lift your hands. Woo! Just feeling like how to be there without using your hands. And then sweeping that leg all the way around for a seated twist. So try bringing it all the way around to the outside of the right thigh. Letting your seat come back down. And we'll do a seated twist. So I'm going to straighten my leg here, my bottom leg, the right leg. You might want to do that too. Just trying to protect my knee. And then just slowly coming into the twist without yanking or pulling too hard, just breathing into the twist. Feeling where the twist is happening in the spine. Just noticing. So your sit bones are probably pretty heavy. You could notice that maybe there's a little more weight in the left sit bone as you turn towards the left. It's fine. Because there's not really much twist happening in the low spine. We're not trying to yank really hard on our low spine here, our lumbar spine. And again, also not trying to yank our neck into the twist, so keep it easy. And then turning back to face forward, and we'll come into steer, so that could be still with the right leg straight, or the knee could be bent. If you have your leg straight, you could have a handy something to hold on to, your foot. Or maybe not, maybe you're just here. So trying not to get any pinching in the front of the hips or really any rounding. You're staying kind of lifted in the head and shoulders. And finding your breath. Paying attention to your gaze and your neck, your head carriage. So finding the right place for your gaze to keep a neutral neck. And then releasing that and twisting in this position, which might be like steer with both knees bent, or like I'm doing with your bottom leg straight. Just an easy twist. Again, you might feel that your right sit bone is lifting a little bit, just subtly off the floor, so that the lower back has a little bit of room for the twist, so you're not pulling too hard. And then turning back forward. And just straighten both legs out in front of you and just let your feet kind of flop in and out. Just releasing the hips. And then we'll keep the left knee forward and the right leg back and come into pigeon or whatever pose you did on the other side. So being mindful of your knee in pigeon. So finding the right angle for the knee before you come forward and bring more weight into it. And doing a standing pigeon at the bar here or at home on a counter or something like that might be an option, or perhaps on your back too. So we're never trying to hurt our knee. We're always trying to keep our knees safe. A little bit more obvious for me lately because I've been dealing with some small injury in my right knee, so I'm really trying to stay out of overloading my body weight into my knee in pigeon, which should do anyway, but you know, it's not sometimes until you feel pain or get an injury that you really notice. So, and if you're on your forearms or on your hands, then you can kind of control how much weight you're bringing forward. You can take some of the weight into your arms. I see people coming into this pose, and this is fine if you want to reach forward, but that's a lot of weight in the knees, so be careful. Also in the front of the hip, and so just paying attention. And then lean to the left and bring your left leg kind of parallel, so it's at a 90-degree angle, flexing your foot, and the back knee also, the back leg also at a 90-degree angle. Maybe you can lift your hands. So that's pretty intense, interesting for me. And then bringing that leg all the way around for a seated twist. So taking your time. And breathing your way into the twist. Again, not pulling too hard on the lumbar spine, letting it be comfortable. Twisting with your breath. So leaving some space for the breath. Feeling the movement of your rib cage and your belly, even in the twist, you're not stuck. And then turning back to face forward and stacking the knees, or you could still straighten the bottom leg, the left leg. And coming into steer pose. Maybe some weight comes forward. And feeling your Ujjayi breathing here. So conscious breath with a bit of closure at the back of the throat, subtle. Again, paying attention to your gaze and how that affects your neck and head. And then back up and out of the forward motion and taking a little twist. Just same kind of twist, but our legs are in a different position. So noticing how that changes the twist from when you have your foot on the floor. Might feel it more in the right outer hip. And then turning to face forward again. And just lean back and straighten the legs and do a little bit of flopping. And then let's try this. Draw your right knee in and sit up tall. So now you have one leg straight, your left leg is straight. So engaging and using this right knee for leverage to find your spine. And then we'll wrap the left elbow around the knee. So for me, if I pull that knee in too close to my chest, I get discomfort in the front of the hip. So finding the right place for your foot and taking the twist. Just because you can do it, just because I can pull this knee in tight doesn't mean I should. And you might feel the same way, that you have things that you can do, but maybe it's not such a good idea. You're listening to your own body and paying attention to your breath. And then from here, maybe you could release your left arm, plant your right hand down, and come up into a little bit of a back bend. So your right foot is on the floor, your left leg is straight. If that feels okay for you, you're bringing your shoulder over your wrist, and then come back down slowly, turning to face forward. And then maybe there's a little bit of a forward bend, so the right shoulder comes into the inner right knee. You could bring your left hand back. Maybe you can reach for the foot, or just reaching forward, kind of hugging the knee in. So there might be a little bit of rounding in the spine, upper spine, and then release and switch legs. So draw the left foot in and sit up tall, finding the right place for the foot, finding the breath. So the right leg is enlivened. It's not clenching, but it's engaged a bit. And then wrapping your right elbow around the knee and coming into the twist. Nice steady breath, finding your gaze. And then you'll remember that we're going to do this little back bend kind of thing. We're going to come up onto the hand, so planting your left hand, release your knee and lift up. You might have to reposition your feet a little bit. And then back down. Just playing with that, so be careful. And then the left arm comes on the inside of the left knee. You could bring your right hand back, and maybe you're reaching for the right foot, keeping the neck from any, keeping it towards neutral, so you're not hyperextending or flexing. The left knee kind of wants to drop open, see if you can kind of hug it in, and then release. And then extend both legs, and maybe coming into a seated forward bend. So your hands could be just on the floor, maybe on your feet. If you can reach your feet and keep a nice long spine, then you might get a little stretch in the feet, kind of using your hands on your feet to stretch the toes a little bit, or the bottoms of the feet. And then let's roll back. So really slowly rolling back onto your back, keeping your legs on the floor. They might slide, but keep them on the floor. Rolling down. I'm going to just adjust the camera a little bit. And then you'll be on your back. And draw the knees in towards the chest, rocking from side to side. And then extend your left leg, but keep it up. So find a neutral spine. You can have your hands on your right knee and then switch. Extend the right leg, draw the left knee in, and go side to side, keeping fairly neutral, so your belly's kind of not popping up, it's staying lengthened and strong. Breathing. And then both knees in, rocking side to side. You could bring your hands back behind your head and just draw the elbows together and up towards the knees, stretching the back of the neck a little. And then bring your feet down and your elbows out to the sides. And then the legs could come up, arms out to the sides, and feet could go side to side, keeping sacrum on the floor. So find the right place for your feet. They're not too far back towards the head. Just straight up and down. Try to relax your shoulders. Keeping sacrum pinned to the floor, going side to side, feeling your belly muscles working. And then draw the knees in. And then let's bring the feet down and come up into bridge pose. So just relax your upper body, lift your hips, keep a little space under the neck, trying to flatten out your neck, lifting the hips. Stay there for a few breaths. You could tuck your shoulders underneath. And then just very slowly rolling down. And you probably have a strap nearby if you need it. Extend your left leg, and either with a strap or your hand on your right foot, with your left hand, bring it to the outer edge of the right foot or to the strap. The right arm can come out to the side and come into a twist, holding onto the foot with a strap or your hand. So my foot is going to stay lifted so that my shoulders can stay on the floor, and then I'm kind of rolling this right hip down, keeping my foot, I'm not sickling my ankle, I'm keeping it pretty much in line, my ankle joint. And then release that and come into a twist just with your knee bent. So just this reclined twist. Your knee might touch the floor or it might stay lifted. Just finding the right place for your body to be in the twist. Feeling the breath. And then rolling onto your back and extending your right leg, and then with the strap around the foot on the left side or the hand reaching to the outer edge of your left foot, you might come into a twist on the other side. Again, using the strap or reaching for your foot with your hand. Maybe your gaze is back over your left shoulder. This hip is kind of drawing down so that you're long through your torso on the left side. And then maybe bending your left knee. And you could take the twist into the variation with a bent knee. Feeling the breath. And then back onto your back again, drawing knees in. And come into happy baby for a few breaths. Maybe some rocking there from side to side. You could try straightening your legs if you want. And then just bring the soles of the feet together so you're like in an upside down cobbler's pose. And then the feet can come to the floor, the inner edges of the feet to the floor. And just open your chest, maybe the arms come up. You could clasp elbows or just bend the elbows. And take a few breaths. And just feel how your body is settling back towards the floor now. You're letting go of Ujjayi breathing if you were still doing that. You're just allowing your body to breathe comfortably in its own natural way. extending the arms and legs, just coming into your final resting pose now. Into Shavasana on your back here. I'm going to sit, but stay there for a few breaths, just experiencing the effects of your practice. Letting yourself have a few moments on your back, releasing the weight of your body towards the earth. Kind of feeling, the holidays. Most of us had a different kind of holiday than we might normally, but there's always stuff that comes up during the holidays. During Thanksgiving, we think back on the past Thanksgivings, and we probably ate more than we usually do, or had a feast of some sort. So just kind of feeling how your body feels after just this hour and 15-minute yoga practice. You might feel more like yourself. It's good to kind of land in your body in this kind of normal way that we do when we practice regularly. Knowing that everything's still there, it's all still good. Sometimes we get a little disembodied at the holidays, so landing again and again in this way, re-embodying ourselves in the way we want to. And I think for some of us who have a lot of traditions that are associated with holidays like Thanksgiving, sometimes we can feel like we have to do those things the way we always do, but we don't really. We can do it just how it's right for us. We get to choose, really. We might have some family obligations or things like that, but as far as our bodies, this is my body, and I can put in it whatever I want to, and I can treat it with care and concern and love in the ways that I need to, even under times of duress. And we can always be kind of tweaking, and by tweaking, I mean we can always kind of be like refining the way that we treat ourselves. We can be making little adjustments to our daily behaviors with our body and our breath and our diet and things like that without making it a big deal. So taking a couple of last breaths here, and then rolling onto your side and coming back up to a seated position to close. And just feeling the effects of your practice as you come upright again. And taking some balanced breaths. Feeling length in your spine, the heaviness of your seat. And bringing the hands together at the heart. And perhaps bowing your head to your own practice, your own inner teacher, your higher self, or your higher power. Thank you so much for joining in. And it's always nice to know that Sasha and Shivanti and Janice, that you're out there practicing regularly. I always have this image of you in your home, which is probably not accurate, but that's okay. It's nice to know you're practicing and that you're there. And I will see you again very soon. Thank you.